the shenanigans within the family of politicians and within the party that has not really sort of crystallized into a division or factionalization of the party, then you might say that it is not established that there is a problem.
Okay. Professor Zwaka, let's give some political perspective to all of this.
Well, for me, I think the entire, what we're witnessing now and in the past, you see, whenever elections are around the corner, you see all sorts of people trying to reposition themselves, because what is important, to the politician is to win. Because when he loses an election, he's losing, a kind of investment. You'll be so shocked that you hear that in some states, one person will put the governor, the members of the House of Assembly, the senators, the members of the House of Reps, one person puts them in there. Why is he doing that? Because the revenue that will accrue to that state, he will be the one that will control and dictate what is going to happen. Even their opinions, when they now go to wherever they are supposed to be representing, quote unquote, the people that are thinking that they were elected by them. You see, because the elections we've been holding are a big problem, to us in Nigeria, when people are not truly representing those that are supposed to have elected them. Because you see right now what is happening in connivance with all sorts of groups, including the security agencies, INEC. People are not able to collect their voters' cards, but they registered. The organization that registered them should be concerned about the fact that, this number have registered and are not able to collect their cards. So where are these people resident? If they're in an area where they were registered, you look for them and give them their cards. But we have this situation whereby...
At least they have addresses.
They have addresses. You don't want... People who not have cards, or even now you find maybe some of the officials selling these cards. We saw in Oshun where they were saying the number of registered voters was more than, the gap in between the two candidates. I mean, what sort of nonsense is that? When you have, in reality, people who came out, who are accredited, which is what you should work with, you are now going back to those who registered who didn't come. So we have a problem, and unless our politicians sit down to think of the country first and know themselves, we will be going around these circles. Around elections, we hold these discussions, and then they will find themselves into office, do what they want to do, not really working in the interest of the people, and then again, another set of elections will come. What is important is to get into office because of the advantage that office will confer on you, and not because you are going to render any service. And that's why you find some presidents of other countries are saying that, give us Nigeria for 1 year, we'll change it, because either if you go for a meeting, you are asleep, they will execute you. There are countries like that. You find in some of the places of meeting where officials of government will be present, because they exhaust themselves doing nothing, just talking politics, which is not going to add anything to the country, but themselves and their pockets. So they end up exhausting themselves. Then when it comes to real business of governance, they are not there. They will be sleeping. You see them being shown on National Assembly, either they are asleep or they are even absent completely, not even attending to their needs. If we should take a roll call, or if they should give us a report, and I think most of the institutions we have are not doing their work. If they should do their work, we should be given a roll call of even the number of sittings these individuals have attended at the House of Assembly and in the House of Reps and Senate. Let's see how many of them really were representing their committee. They were busy chasing contracts in some of the committees that they're supposed to be members. And that's why they become super rich, and then they go and contest for a higher position. That's what is important to them.
As an aside, now that you have mentioned it, the large number of uncollected PVCs is something that is very worrisome. In some other countries, prospective voters register and they receive their voters' cards by post. Here in Nigeria, we have to physically go to where we register to collect those voters' cards, and then there is this large number of uncollected voters' cards still with the Independent National Electoral Commission and all of that. Now, is it that some of these people were registered by proxy, or they do not exist, or why are they not going to these places to collect their cards?
You can adduce a number of reasons to all these problems. There are allegations that, even in some states, some individuals, because they know that they may vote a particular way, they will deny them access to collecting the cards. So a large chunk of these individuals will not be able to access their cards. And then you have Nigerian organizations that will not think that it is their responsibility to ensure that those they registered are actually issued the card. That's why we have suggested severally that they need to unbundle INEC. The group that should be registering people for voting should not be INEC. INEC should just concern itself with conducting elections, getting registered, all these things. You should have different organizations. You have National Population Commission, for instance, who should register somebody at birth. So if you are 18, they should even inform you if they know your address, where you're supposed to go and vote. Because that's what they do in some other countries. But in our own country, because we want to remain where we are, we're not ready to grow. Even in this jet age, we still want to be using analog methods in doing our things. It's a big problem.
Honorable, you are a practicing politician, so we should ask you what exactly is happening with this situation that we find ourselves, where people who have gone to register as voters, I mean, there was a lot of enlightenment campaigns carried out, and you got people to come out and register. They went through the very torturous process of getting registered, and now to collect those cards, it's become another problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the main problem here is, and I'll sort of join my opinion with that of the Prof. Yusuf. And you see, the problem in Nigeria, we have an identity management system crisis. We don't have, and that is why there's a lot of lawlessness, there's a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of disorganization, and there's no proper planning for us as a nation. Until we address our identity management system and we unify it, then we can handle problems. Every assignment we need to take as a nation can key into that unified, authentic identity management system, and it will be easy to apply. For instance, you mentioned that there is a population commission. We should know the Nigerians that are given birth to. We should know the Nigerians that have died. You understand? And when you have that, and somebody should let you know when you're 18, even if you're not aware, there should be an alert that should drop on your phone and say that you are entitled to have a voter's card. Go ahead and collect yours. Now, the best way of being close to an identity management system in this country, in my opinion, is by the BVN. And that is why a lot of other agencies and MDAs and parastatals and people who want to get things done are keying into the DVN. By the time you harmonize the BVN, harmonize the licensing, motor licensing system, you understand? And maybe the population commission, whatever information they have, and integrate it and have one data. It can be handled by the Bureau of Statistics, for instance. And you have a unified data system. Every Nigerian can key into it. And truly, I agree. It shouldn't be the problem of INEC to make sure that they can be the custodian, but they can tap into a unified identity management system, you understand, to make sure that people are registered and they get their voter's card. They could be done by courier. They could be delivered by courier. People might be alerted at different points. Maybe they go to the bank, they say, look, your voter's card is ready for the pick. Please, we have an alert in our system that says you should go and collect it. To me, it's just, the core problem is the inefficiency of the technological infrastructure that we are basing our registration on. Yes, there might be other reasons of, you know, people who intend to they make it difficult for people to get registered because they want to vote in a particular way. We cannot wish away all those other minor ones. But the core problem, because I don't believe in addressing, you know, like they say, clinical science. You need to address the etiology of the problem. And the real etiology of the problem is that we have an inefficient, you know, standard operational procedure to get identity and registration done. So once we address that as a nation, we have edged out the man that wants to abuse the inefficiency for his skewed political reasons and considerations. So I think we should face the issue. The issue is that we should address the methodology and the system of making sure that we do proper registration and people get their cards.
All right, thank you, Honorable. Like I said, it's an aside. Let me return to Mr. Lagi. Or is it that you have one or two words to throw in on that?
I mean, I think subsequently we can mention. First of all, we don't have addresses in Nigeria, even when it is very important for the purposes of payee that is beneficial to state, because payee is a tax paid in the state of residence. And yet, states have not organized themselves in such a way that they should be able to say, I know who lives in my state and I know what revenues are available to me from residents in my state. In any case, you spend all these resources in training, creating schools, building hospitals for people who don't pay taxes. For example, if you are from my state, Nasarawa State, half the population of Maraba, Nyanya, Karo comes to work in Abuja. And most of them pay their taxes to Abuja. And nothing is remitted to Nasarawa State. And Nasarawa State will be responsible for providing infrastructure, for providing healthcare services, schools, and the rest of them, refuse disposal and the rest of them. Now, if a state like mine cannot even organize itself to understand who is resident here and give street numbers, for example, how do you expect that INEC can be able to post this? I mean, we can only wish that they are posted, but we all know in this country we don't even have identifiable addresses. Yeah. So it's pretty crazy. I agree that we should unbundle INEC. I mean, we have accepted banking system on our phones, and almost everybody in Nigeria now who is an adult, including some who are not adult, have phones. We can send and receive money from them. We can scratch a card and pay credit. Then the only way we become science illiterate is when it comes to elections in Nigeria, that we have to go line up, queue up, show an identity card, PVC, whatever it is. The card readers don't read, but our phones read, our ATM cards read. We have marks in almost every location. We have polling units everywhere. We identify them, but we just can't identify our people. So we delineate constituencies for our own benefit, simply to organize, occupy the office. But election has been one aspect of the Nigerian life that we will not, except of course if we have somebody serious as a president, organize. Because the politicians are beneficiaries of the screwed system. And basically that is it. If we want elections to work today, you have my word, we can vote and receive a text that we have voted, and even the person we have voted for, on an app. You don't need to go to the polling unit, you don't need to queue up, as the case is. So these are systems, yes, not perfect. We have the experience with NBA. I was discussing this and somebody said, look, but we had it in the NBA and there were crises with that. The issue is, if somebody voted for me, it's impersonation. How many people have we held responsible for, rigged elections? INEC conducts elections, and all the complaints in every state from every constituency, year in, year out, election petition has become a very lucrative industry. And if you ask me, why will one politician take another to an election petition tribunal when both of them are not in charge of conduct of this election? So year in, year out, from every legislative seat, from every gubernatorial seat, from INEC is in court. And we haven't held one person in INEC responsible from the beginning of election conduct in Nigeria to date. And this other coming elections will pour into the tribunals. Again, people will spend huge amount of money. INEC will spend huge amount of money that is budgeted to defend a process that we know is undefendable. So the question is, are we really serious about
that's a question we need to answer. Now, because almost everyone seems to agree that there is need to unbundle INEC.
Yeah.
And that INEC is overburdened by the responsibilities that are conferred on it by the Constitution and the expectations of the people. Now, there has been the Justice Uwe's Commission report. There's been the Senator, the former Senate President committee that was also set up by this administration. The question that really arises is, why is every government lacking the political will to unbundle INEC?
Yeah, because, we now don't have an election process in this country. We have an appointing process. INEC determines who comes to the National Assembly. INEC determines who becomes a governor in what state. If you look at the current, the recent elections, you understand that we simply say we are having a democratic process where people are elected by the representative, but we know that is not the case. People get into offices because INEC wants them to get into office. So if you are in bed with INEC, or your political party is in bed with INEC, except of course where constituencies overpower them, INEC will determine who goes to what, who takes what political office and who doesn't. And that is the major problem. Now, unless we throw back more power to the people, as I said, let's have a system that does not give INEC as much power as it has in determining who becomes what, but gives the votes themselves as the case is. So if I vote, for example, and I get a text from my phone that says, this is to confirm that you have voted Mr. A, B, and C in these elections. If I don't get it, or I do not vote, and I get a return that I have voted, it's easy to go to court and say, okay, INEC had voted for me when I didn't vote, or INEC had changed my vote from this person to that person. Then we hold INEC responsible. But unless we begin to hold ourselves who are in public office responsible, you're never going to get anything done. I give you another example. Inyame is in prison. Dare is in prison. But none of these persons sign, they are not accounting officers in government. They don't sign any check. So where is the director of finance who is supposed to collect the check and pay into what account? Who is supposed to sign out this check? Where is the commissioner of finance that are in this? So you make scapegoats of people and you leave the corrupt system working. At the end of the day, we keep asking ourselves, where are we headed to? We can't steal money in this country if it is not taken from one person to give. So what is the procedure? What are the financial regulations in Nigeria? Who is in breach of it? Is it the person who sits down and don't sign, and how does the money come to him? Does he use witch or something? Maybe snakes and the rest of them.
Monkeys.
Now, so you hold a governor responsible. The director of finance is not held responsible. The person who released the check to the governor who was not supposed is not responsible. A bank officer who picks the check and pays in a different bank account when he knows he ought not to do that, they are still out here enjoying themselves, and one person is being punished for the responsibility of a whole bureaucratic system.
Yeah, so for you, we're just scratching the surface.
We haven't even scratching it.
Yes.
We're
because
just,
the corrupt system is left in.
we're just caressing it.
All of that.
We're just caressing.
I know you want to come in
Yes.
there, but let me turn to Prof.
Yeah.
Now, if committee after committee, and indeed very many Nigerians have recommended that we should unbundle INEC, and we have failed to unbundle INEC, and we are going into another major elections, do we really expect anything different from what has been since our return to democracy?
Well, I don't think we're expecting anything different. You see, because the beneficiaries of this chaos, because it's just chaos, some people are benefiting from it. And so, since they are benefiting from this chaos, they wouldn't want anything that will allow the people that we're talking about, the people. When we say democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, you know what it simply means? That the people are central, you know, in a democracy, and their consent must be given. Now, when you take, maybe apart from the national level, where you find some little bit of organization, when you go to the state level,
Local government elections.
take the local governments, that is completely killed. It's existing only in the constitution. But go to all the 36 states, no local governments are existing. All these things we're talking about having addressed, that's the function of the local government. Travel around any of these highways, you'll be seeing villages upon villages and towns and so on, without any government presence. No government presence.
They are pulling units.
That's to say that there's no even government official in that town that you can say, if there's a problem, he's the one that should resolve the problem. All you have are all these, maybe if there's a village head or a district head, and the district head will have already connived with some people and therefore will not allow justice, you know, to reign. So when you have this kind of chaos, and then you're expecting to get a different result, I think we're just not serious, we're dreaming. The Ways panel has made it very clear. If you want to unbundle INEC, they even made bills, proposed bills. So you just send this in. You don't need to go and sit down and crack your bed. They did everything. So that I can now have this political offenses commission, political party registration and monitoring commission, and all these things about how to ensure that, you know, elections are conducted smoothly. So that when you have all these crises we're talking about in the parties, because we said the NPDP, what they did was to create a faction so that they can defect. And the same thing they did in the RAPC, created a faction so that they can defect. But if you now go and you say you're defecting the PDP, which is already a united party, then they can hit you by telling you that, you know, you are going to lose your seat. And that's some of the problem. But I think if we can maybe get ourselves properly organized at the local government, because when we completely don't talk about local government, which is where the people actually live, they work and die in that local government. All these responsibilities assigned to local governments, they cannot be executed because some people have hijacked, you know, the power. Any governor that wants to be stupendously rich, all he needs to do is just appoint caretakers. And then he now assign to them the monies that will be given to them. And then we'll say we'll have and you know, the FCC's, you know, role maybe just under the federal. They don't really have any serious, power at the state. We have seen how they were chasing some villages. They can't even attempt to go near some towns because, yes, they dare not because they may not meet their, their water low in some of these places. So they can't even go there. People have taken money of the federal government, they've hidden it in their respective communities and villages, and you cannot go and say you are fighting corruption. And we've seen, even the partisanship of some of these security agencies. I mean, we cannot get anywhere. They shouldn't go to a point where you be hearing people now calling for disbandment of some of these organizations because, of course, if the security that's supposed to be protecting the citizens now turns against them by encouraging hoodlums to take laws into their hands, I mean, we're really growing to an anarchous